Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Travis Told You. I am your host, Travis Snell, and yes, it is, Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. For video people, you may be wondering, where the fuck am I? I am downstairs, because usually I podcast, nighttime upstairs in my little space right now. Right now, there's a daycare going on because, yes, I have a daycare in the household. As you guys know, that's what my lady does and whatnot. So, yeah, didn't want to cast there. Doing a little bit earlier for a few reasons. That's why I'm down here. Just a boring little setup. I got a dog beside me, though, so that's good. But, yes, ladies and gentlemen, here we are for Trust Hold You. I guess I never announced it, but still a few days later and everything. So I appreciate you for holding on. Wanted to Sunday, but just didn't get a chance to. I was gonna try and do more right after the pay-per-view for wrestling. But yeah, today we're talking a bunch of stuff. So let's get right into it pretty much. We got Superman and Lois casted, or just cast, not casted. We got them cast. We got Lex Luthor rumors. We got, what do we got? We got Kraven trailer, which I'm not really going to talk about too much because I don't have much to say and stuff like that. We got some news about Spider-Verse and the bad stuff that's going on over there. Anything on the Flash? I'm wearing a Flash shirt today. May as well just like be, in memoriam for that movie and stuff like that. But yeah. Everything you need to know is down below. The links, the videos, the audios. I don't think I have any water today. But yeah, be here for like an hour 15. Yeah, head over. I don't know why I said yeah like a bunch of times, but head over to our Patreon, get episodes ad-free, early, exclusive. And if you can get to us to 50 patrons by the end of July 31st, you can unlock 5 episodes, and that's for everybody, and you can join any tier. But there's a lot of good benefits on there. You can go tomorrow for the patrons. You're going to be voting on our Margot Robbie retrospective in honor of Barbie. We're doing that. So that should be a fun one. And yeah, it should be a good month upcoming here. Obviously, we've lost some Comic-Con and whatnot, but lots of fun big movie reviews happening. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. But anyways, let's get right into it. So I originally was going to do it. It's funny. This report came out yesterday, and yes, all in the game. We'll talk about that. Announced to deflect from the stink of the Flash bombing. And yeah, that's where it all goes into, right? And I didn't believe it. So yesterday, no, I didn't believe it today. I believed it once I saw it. Yesterday, I think it was Hollywood Report, right? That's who Boris gets right with. Yeah. He had put out this report and stuff, and that's where we're going to talk about some things about some versions of this movie and some plot stuff and everything and who was in the running and everything. But they said the casting may come as early as this week. And honestly, I didn't believe it. I thought they'd hold off. Clearly, who knows what the reason is. Obviously, Flash being one of them. It looks like Comic-Con's very iffy. Everyone so far is not going other than WB, but WB hasn't said they're going. It's just up in the air, but like everybody, Marvel, what is it? Netflix, Lucasfilm, which they usually don't go, Paramount. So like a bunch of people aren't going, right? So that kind of sucks. And it's one of these things where like the writer strike's kind of the actor strike is kind of all over. We don't know what's going to happen there because obviously if you announce it before, you don't got to worry about a strike happening. You don't have to risk it, where if the strike happens, then boom. I don't know. Just been watching Corn Sweet and Bronson clips on Twitter timeline. And yes, S Bubs is transitioning us right into that part. Because yeah, so the idea was it's coming out. It could be this week. I didn't believe it. I thought it'd be a little bit. I do agree that if it's because of Flash, that's a little meh. It's tough, right? If it's because of strike and they want it out there, it is a missed opportunity to have a very cool Comic-Con moment. Even if people kind of know who it is, to have that official, this is who it's going to be come out, that'd be great. But clearly, that wasn't going to happen for a bunch of reasons, right? And yeah, it came out today that Dave Cornsweet, the internet's favorite fan cast for Superman, is Clark Kent, and Rachel Brosnahan, I think I'm saying it right, is your new Lois Lane, which surprised me because these are the pairings out of the 6 that I won. I didn't really have, well, I guess I did, right? I had Jacob Elordi, but we talked about that way long ago, right? That the rumor was that he didn't even send an audition tape. So whatever the thing is, and it could be because of budget, who knows? He didn't want it, so that's why I feel okay. Would have been good, but it didn't happen. Dave Cornsweet, he's what everybody has been wanting and whatnot. That clip keeps going around of him talking about being an extra actor, and he slaps his knee. It's like, look at the good old Superman, which is funny. I'm very interested to see how some people react because you have that clip and you have, which is great for him too, to put all aside at the end of the day. What we talk about, get worked up as fans, stuff like that. 4 years ago in 2019, he talked about like he loves Superman, would love to play Superman. He was nice. Oh, like I like Henry's Dark and Gray version, but I definitely want to get back. Like it'd be great if we got back to this version, the next one. And I think we're definitely going that route with the type he is and with what he said. And I feel like it's the same way as like Chris Pratt and James Gunn. It was one of these things that they talked and then they just start to bond and things like that and have the same ideas. I think it works differently for each role, but I think these roles where you are in a franchise that's going to be around for a while, you do have to kind of gel with the people, right? And that's what James Gunn said today. He said, accurate, wonderful, talented, but even more wonderful human beings. You have to have somewhat of a similar mindset, I think, if you're going to work with them for the long run. And I feel like that's the case here. He's going to be, I think that's why he is, other than Nicholas Hoult, which who knows, we'll get to what he was charging. They need people that are on the smaller side as far as the budgeting thing. They're still going to get paid well. They're going to have a whole career. They'll get more and more and more. But it's not like I don't think these two are breaking the bank, right? But still, you got to find someone that kind of you get along with it, especially James Gunn. Like you're making it like whatever. I don't care what James Gunn says, and we can talk about it. It's fucking confused about Blue Beetle's the first character of this, and there's this and that, blah blah. Whatever it is, to me, the start of the DCU, James Gunn's official universe, to me is Superman Legacy, right? So that you're putting a lot of chips on this guy, and hopefully they've picked the right person. As I've said before, I've only seen him in Pearl. I like that enough. It's funny, he's in this rom-com movie that me and Emily talked about watching last year. It's with that girl who plays Betty from Riverdale. So I said, well, we're watching that movie now because now I'll get affiliated with the same thing. When Henry Cavill was cast as Superman, I saw Immortal, not the greatest movie. I was like, hey, what's this actor like? Like, what's in their Rolodex? So, again, as far as what I've seen, and it's a little bit in Pearl, yeah, he was great. And he has a look. I still, again, feel when it's funny when it was him and McKay that were the front runners as of yesterday, because we'll talk about that. It was just like, oh, look, you got baby Margot Robbie, you got baby Cavill and stuff like that, right? Good to see you there, Pickens. Finally, yeah, I know I've been all over and stuff like that. It's because I'm back to work and I should get rid of that starting soon. But I had a couple of vacations coming up, so I'll probably be doing some midday casts again. But as of right now, it's all over the place. So, like I said, he looks very much like Cavill, and I know people say, well, he looks like Superman. I disagree. I don't think that Henry Cavill, Christopher Reeve, like Tom Welling look the same, or even Tyler Hoechlin. Like, okay, the whole Superman look is the, tall, dark, handsome, black hair, right? So, yeah, sure, they got that, but I feel like Cavill and Corn Sweat really, really look alike. And that's the thing. Cavill is going to be charging a certain price. We've always rumored about money-wise. They're doing a semi-origin new Superman. They're starting a universe, very confusing universe and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. But I think that's the best thing, I think, for me that's fun is clearly the guy's a fan of the character, which I think helps. I don't know how it's going to feel because, like what I was alluding to before, I went on a different track, so I apologize there. I think you're going to get a very bright and optimistic Superman. You're going to get smiling. You're going to get, I don't know if he's going to save a cat in a tree, but I feel like there'll be a joke about that. You're going to get a very Christopher Reeve-esque Superman. Now, I don't think it's going to be like that, and I still like that movie. I think it's going to be, more updated, but I do think it's going to be more lighthearted and stuff like that. I think you will get a lot of people that don't enjoy the classic Superman or think that's outdated that will go meh. So we'll see. Let's see. All in the Game says Brandon Ralph definitely look like Chris Reeve. Absolutely, because that was supposed to be the same Superman, right? So they did look. And there's times where Henry Cavill, like there's a shot in the movie where it looks like of course they have a likeness, but it's just those two look so similar and stuff like that. Man of Tomorrow could be inspiration for Superman Legacy, which we will talk about, which I kind of agree. I don't know if it'll be I don't think Jim's going to watch that film's like, I want to do this, but it sounds like there's going to be similarities to it, right? So we'll see. So good for him. But again, what I was trying to get to is he said 4 years ago, he's a fan, wants to do this. That's cool for him. Hopefully he's a great guy, not an asshole, stuff like that. As far as us being on the inside or being on the outside, it's cool that somebody that, has expressed even before, long before, they were casting a new Superman that, hey, I'd like to do that. And I'd like to see this, like has a reverence for the character. That's great. So, and I feel like you do have to be a little bit on the wavelength at the same time for this type of stuff, right? Because I feel like with a one movie off, you can kind of disagree, but it's like, oh, well, you're playing a character, you play it this way. I feel like, again, what I was saying, leading a cinematic universe, a movie like this, you got to have some same of the wavelength going on, right? So You got that. And then you got Lois Lane. And that was the thing yesterday that they said that the three groups was I don't even know, the girl from Bridgerton, and his name's like Tom. So, it doesn't matter. They didn't get it. They weren't in the running. Like, they were in the running, but it just sounds like they were very more lower tier. And it was Nicholas Hoult and Rachel Brosnahan. And then it was McKay and the new Superman, Corn Sweat. And the weird thing was, and it's funny because I'll completely say this is what I read into, and they even say this in an article where they bring in these people to test, right? And then the next day, the second day of screen test, they brought Emma McKay to test with all of them. They tested with every single one of them, and they're like, that doesn't mean she's a front runner, but you could read it that way. And that's how I read it. And now there could be a case where maybe, hey, Rachel Brosnahan is, it's not available this day and we need Lois. You want to come in? Now, it's not the same way it works because it's a screen test. But even then, maybe because Kroll tweeted this out today, and this was in the report like a month ago, 2 months ago, that Rachel sent in a tape, right? And apparently it was like the best tape out of the whole casting process, like even more than Superman's. Like, they just really liked her. Then there were these stupid rumors like, oh, she might be too old, which again, you look at their ages. I think there's it's like 3 or 4. It's just like, that's the age difference between me and my lady. Like, that's not there's a difference, but it's not that sense where it's like, man, Lois Lane is so old. But I wonder if there is a situation where, and this is just me completely being like, just throwing out there's a theory, right? Let's say she sends in this tape, she kills it, and they look at her and they go, whether it's, oh, she's old, or they are leaning towards Emma McKay because she's an upcoming star, she's in sex education, she might be someone we could bankroll, maybe she costs cheaper, I don't know. I wonder if Rachel was like the front runner, but Emma McKay came in that second day to be like, okay, before we really decide who's gonna be Lois, like, let's have her test. And I'm not saying this is the situation, but we've heard thousands, I won't say thousands, we've heard dozens, hundreds of stories of the studio wanted actor A and the director on actor B, and there's kind of like a screen test off for a reason. I'm not saying that's the way it went, but that could be a reason, right? Of, hey, we think Rachel's the person, but we do like Emma. Let's give her one last shot. Let's test her with everybody and see. And then at the end of it, they might just went, it's Rachel, like whatever it is. And yeah, thematically, I know like Lois Lane is mechanically older than Superman in most comics, but like that's to me where yes, but I feel like the way the article was being like, she's too old. It's like, again, what is she? Is she like 32 or something? There you go. You got to be up there twice. Let's see, Rachel, which she's gonna be all over now because Rachel. I'm sure she doesn't come up, but right now, it's because I've searched before. Right now, you got McAdams, Wise, Notley, Sinnott, Ziegler, Maddow. So, and that's the thing for both these people, and that's why it doesn't matter money-wise what they're going to get, because this is going to make them. And they don't even need to be, maybe, she's 32. Like, she's older than me and a lot of other people. She's going to be Lois Lane, big box office thing. So it's like, I wouldn't understand, like, even then, like, if she was 40, it's like, okay, there's a difference, but you want to have some relation. But even then, there's some, and again, what is he again? So I'm not speaking out of my ass here. David Cornsweat, he is 29. She's 3 years older than him. And that's what was weird, the big age difference, right? So to me, I don't think, like, and who knows? We've heard shit about that with studios before, right? Look at that Elle Fanning story a few weeks ago of she's playing a 15-year-old and they said, she's, not fuckable enough. Hollywood is a weird fucking place. But I was someone that thought, okay, I think McKay is going to be it with all these reports going around. And I want Rachel because I've not seen Marvelous Miss Maisel. Luckily, I pulled up. I have seen her House of Cards. And then I have seen just clips of her, whether it's Miss Maisel or other ways. It's kind of like with Corn Sweat, where I think I've always said that I'm fine with, if it wasn't Jacob Elordi, I'm fine with a no-name actor. Henry was a no-name, that's fine. Make them a name, make your own. She's been nominated for Emmys, she's won awards. She definitely has a name, not a massive name, but a name. It's McKay. Is Emma Mackey? Well, it doesn't matter. I don't go remember. She's not Lois Lane. But, for me, it's like, the way Corn Sweat was like, this is the guy. That's the way I have been with her, because I'm like not as familiar with her, even though when I look at her IMDb, I guess I've seen her in a few things. She just has the vibe. She has the look. She has the vibe. And I think, to me, this was out of the 6. This is the one that was the best pairing of them. Now, who knows? We got to see. But they've probably all done chemistry tests, right? They're going to build them. These are screen tests we heard about. I guarantee when they're the finals, they did not, in my opinion, and if they're testing all those people and Corn Sweat and Brosnahan did not test together once, you'd be like, what are you doing? You're like, what's going on here? So I think that's gonna happen. Jacob Elordi is my MCU Scott Summers pick. Uh I could see it. I just wonder if I got the sense from this that he's not into that type of. He's not wanting to do this, right? Because unless he's like, I'm a massive Marvel fan, I feel like most hot young actors, if they were told, hey, you could send an audition tape for Superman, they would do it. So the fact that he declined could be a bunch of reasons, but it could be like Chalamet, right? Where Chalamet's like, hey, I like watching this stuff, but I don't plan on being in a superhero movie. I feel like it could be more that, but we'll see. So yeah, we got this. It's big news. Obviously, it sucks that it was not at a Comic-Con. It sucks that it wasn't something that was with a lot of fanfare, just kind of out there. But at the same time, we might not get a Comic-Con, right? So I get it. I understand that point. Yeah, that's it. There, you got our Superman and Lois. Let it begin soon. Not soon. It's gonna be far off, right? But like, next is the suit, and the next is the trunks and the look, and I guess actually the next is casting everyone else, right? Because we've heard, and to go into some of these other rumors that were in this report, we've heard that I know they're looking at Jimmy Olsen. They're looking at Lex, which who knows? And I guess to talk about some of them, Em, I don't have much to add on. I feel like we're getting every detail of this movie that happens. Yeah, S-Bubs, and it's funny because I definitely feel like more and more as we go along, and I know some people might say it's because the bad press that they want out there, and we'll talk about Flash, but just like as our fandom goes along, this is going to be more and more a thing. Because I always talk about this example, right, where I always forget who it was. I should look it up one day, but I don't want to on air. When they were doing BVS casting, and it was there was the talked people. It was Brolin, Gosling, and who knows if they like were turned down or whatever. But just, these were the names, right? It was another one, and Affleck wasn't anywhere. And then it was the same thing where randomly Affleck popped up, and then he was confirmed, or it was the same point. And that's where like, who did this come from? Nowadays, I feel like we're not going to get that. Now, at the same time, it's funny with F4 that hasn't happened from big trades. Like they haven't been reporting it too much. It's been more the C plus tier people. So, but it definitely feel like we're getting all the movie stuff. And who knows? It could be just to build up that excitement. To leave it behind, if it is done because say the Flash bombed, it makes sense to me. If like leave it behind, let's start looking forward. Yeah, you got Blue Beetle, which is the first character, but we'll see how that does. Yeah, you have Aquaman, but that's just like a hopefully it makes money. Look forward, and I think just the word and the buzz, maybe that's what's happening right now, right? So, but then the other two rumors were you got, and I don't think they're gonna be rumors. I feel like they're Hollywood Reporter, they're A plus tier, so I feel like they're gonna be happening, or at least I don't know if they're these two, but hey, they got them right here, and again, that's where Hollywood Reporter, Boris Kit, he's the one that reported Holt was going for Superman, and Kroll said no, he's going for Luthor. He was apparently going for Superman, so put one to Boris's name and stuff like that, but. So, with Lex Luthor, the two front runners or the short list, whatever you want to call it right now, are the Skarsgård. Stellan, no, I'm joking. Even though Taylor shared on the Discord, go join the Discord link below. If the link doesn't work, let us know because sometimes it refreshes. Stellan would have been a great Lex Luthor at some point, but I just checked my phone to make sure I don't get a notification or anything. Papa John's email, which I get Papa John's email. Prove the haters are wrong. Order pineapple pizza. What a weird fucking email to get. Anyway, so it is the Skarsgårds. It is Bill and Alexander. And Holt is kind of up in the air right now as far as it's not known if he would go for Lex after this or what the deal's. Who knows? We've had that happen before, right? That's how we got Hiddleston as Loki, and it ended up great. To kind of close up the Superman casting into Lex one, to talk about Holt. Yeah, it sucks. It's like... the screen test things suck because now when we read on IMDb, it's usually years later we find out it's like, oh, cool, or an actor mentions like, oh, cool. But in the moment and the guy's gonna be fine. He's working. He's a great performer. He's gonna be fine. But in the moment, like he got Nosferatu coming up, that's gonna be fun. But in the moment, kick the camera. In the moment, to know that you were, down to you and passing for Batman, didn't get that. And then you were the final three for Superman, didn't get that. These like big superhero roles, the big franchise ones, you keep getting passed over. You're Bridesmaid, but never Bride, right? He got to be Beast, but that's not the same thing. So it definitely sucks there. I'm in the camp, and I already don't like seeing it. I did not want him as the Batman, and I'm glad that didn't happen. And I didn't want him as Superman. I think he's a great actor. I think he'd be in a lot of things. I think him as Lex is the way to go. I like the Skarsgårds. But to me, I still once I heard Holt as Luthor, I'm like, fuck, that's really, really good. And I'm kind of hooked on that. But who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to, right? He want to be a hero. Maybe he want to be the super franchise guy. If that's the case, maybe he's going to go in Sony and play Doc Ock when they do Superior Spider-Man. Who knows, right? But clearly he wants to do that. And that does suck on that side. I just think these are just two roles that it's like you're good, but not good enough. And who knows? I'm not seeing these screen tests. What am I to say? He's a great actor. So maybe even as Passons or like Reeves' Batman, he would have got cast and would have been great. But for me, there's been not like a missing click there, a link there, right? So we'll see. And I guess I asked the patrons too. Let me pull up the poll. I asked between the three, because Holt's kind of in there, not up there yet, but between the three, who would they have voted for Lex Luthor? My phone, oh my boy, so slow. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. So Holt was 60%, and then both the Skarsgårds were 20 and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's where I am. I hope it is Holt. I hope they circle around, but maybe he doesn't want to. Like I said, maybe he wants to lead a franchise. We'll see. The Skarsgårds were lucky both ways to me. Each one would give a different version. I've not seen Succession, so people say like he was pretty much playing a Lex Luthor type there. So, okay, fine. But even then, I'd be like, hey, Skarsgård could do it. I wouldn't look at Skarsgård and be like, oh, that's a bad choice. No, I think Alexander Skarsgård's a really good one. And I think he's one of those guys that's getting better and better as he's gone older and stuff like that. I think before, like, there's rumors he was for Captain America, right? I think that wouldn't have been the right time to cast him back then. Now I feel like he's more sensible. I feel like even in stuff like Infinity Pool, which I don't love, he's good in, you know, like I feel like he's a lot more range than he used to. Where Bill, the younger one, feels like he just already has it. And I feel like if you look at Barbarian, It for Pennywise, and then John Wick 4, and there's a lot of other performances, right? But if you look at those ones and see the versatility that he has is playing these different type roles, and Barbarian I list as example because that's a role where you're not sure how to feel about the character, right? Lex, to me, I want, and Gunn has said this, right? He wants to make a complex Lex. He doesn't want to make him over the top. That's what I want. The same way how the High Evolutionary was, you know, obviously he was more scumbaggy, but like how he sold it was so well. I think, Ronan aside, I liked Ego. I liked High Evolutionary. Starro, you can't really say because Starro's whatever, right? But Pickens, we will talk about wrestling, but I might not have time to record it right now. It might be on the podcast only version, so sorry to disappoint you, but I am more on the clock today. That's why I had to go a bit earlier. So if I don't, it'll be on the podcast version. I'll talk about Forbidden Door, so it'll be there. So I'm sorry there in the chat, and it's not gonna happen, but that's life with 3 kids and a wife and making dinner, all that good jazz. So I'm more in the Bill camp, but I'm not like I said, you asked me, Bill or Alexander, I'm more in the Bill camp. I think John Wick 4 too is another example of playing a great villain that didn't have too much backstory, but he made him feel like he had a lot of backstory. So I just feel like we're gonna get some great monologues. Alexander Skarsgård, I worry could end up playing him. The good thing is he has the charisma. I just worry he might play him too too aggressive, right? Where I think Bill might rein it back a little bit. I don't know for sure, but again, it's apples to oranges, and all 3 of these, right? And this is just the short list. And Holt, we don't even know he's in the running. This is just a short list, so both Skarsgård could say no. But for me, I like Bill. If you're going markability, probably Alexander Skarsgård has the better one as far as like putting on a poster, stuff like that. He has All Against This Range, Generation Kill, Success, Northman, True Blood, Little Drummer Girl, and I agree. I just feel like Bill's range is like a little more, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I think they're both good choices. That's why for me, it'd be like you could coin flip it if you really need to be. So sounds like they'll be in there. Sounds like that's what they'll be casting next. We don't know. And then the other details that were given is that the Authority, some characters will be in here. I know I've seen some push and pull because I've seen, and it's a worthy debate because the 2 things we revealed that the Authority will be in here. We don't know if they're the villains or side characters. So one, I hope that their role is not too large unless they're the villains, because I want similar to Iron Man where it is a universe and there's little drops of stuff, but it doesn't feel like you have to be like, oh, it's the next, you've got to watch the next movie. You got to watch the next movie and stuff like that. I haven't watched Successor, no, but like, I feel like enough when I know I've seen the clips of Succession to know what Alex was doing there. I just feel like from what I've seen as far as that, like same thing. I don't know if you've seen Infinity Pool and stuff like that. I've seen him do some different ranges and everything. And I feel like I just give Bill a little bit of the edge and stuff like that. So, but if you're going for like the political type that everyone loves, Alexander might be the better because he is like more the pretty boy, right? So for me, I can't know until I see the movie because I've seen the debates, and the other thing was that Superman won't be the first hero of the DCU, which already makes sense because some people are like, oh, that's lame. People aren't gonna like that, but it's like, one, they did that with Man of Steel. You know, I know Wonder Woman's the past, but still, like at that time, it's like no one was really around. They've retroactively fitted the same way as Iron Man. Now there's things like, oh, in the past there was this guy and this guy, but still at the time it's like, okay, he's the first of our present day, right? I was fine with that because Man of Steel already did that. We've already known that we're doing Brave and the Bold, and it's going to be Batman's going to have a son, so he's been around for a while. So that's the thing where I'm like, okay, I wasn't really surprised that he wasn't the only hero. I just don't want an over saturation of look at this thing, look at this thing. The two things in Iron Man I'd say are the biggest is one's a post credit scene with Nick Fury when no one was watching post credits, so that's fine. And the other thing is Shield, and Shield could just be any sort of operation, like their FBI, their CIA. They didn't pose them as like when they said it, you know, strategic. It was like all comic fans were like, oh, cool and stuff like that, which I feel like we already knew before because they're just scuttlebutt, right? But it was the thing of like they're just their organization. You saw Captain America's shield and stuff like that. Actually, was that one or two? I can't remember. But they were very little things. It didn't feel like a whole big setup things. And I think some movies can do the whole big setup things, but sometimes they do too much. And I feel like in this one, I don't want that. I think you just have to get people to fall. This is like, and then the worry is you go Iron Man 2 where it's too much, right? Where it's just like, hey, you have Iron Man 1 where it's mostly Iron Man, and Iron Man 2 is like, let's get all this MCU stuff in there. You need to find a way to balance it. And I think that with Superman, I think the biggest focus is making people fall in love with the world, and meaning Superman's world, Metropolis, the Daily Planet, the Kents, Clark, Lois, you know, Luthor in a love to hate way sort of way. That's what you need to do. And not so much to me worry about saying the next thing. And I saw a tweet the other day, which I agree with, right? Where people were excited for the Avengers, not because it was leading to the next big event, because it was like, oh, this Easter egg, this Easter egg. They're excited because I really like these characters and I can't wait to see them interact. That's what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, the stories, like, this, you know, obviously you want a great story. I'm not saying that. We have great story ones, but still it's about the characters and having a good time. And they're more blockbusters. You can still create great stories. I feel like many, you know, MCU has some great stories. DCU had, you know, some in there, not necessary for me and stuff like that all the time as far as their bigger crossovers. But Justice League was that, right? To me, it got there. Just focus on Superman first. And I'm not saying that's what Gunn's doing. We don't know. The Authority, literally, they could be in two scenes just like as oh, they're a thing like a shield, or they could be a villain. Who knows? That I can't judge until we get there. But I do trust Gunn and stuff like that. Let's see. Brave and the Bold cartoon was the first episode, Rise of the Blue Beetle. I've watched Brave and the Bold, but never start to finish. I think I will in the future. I do think streaming TV shows will get you the connective tissue, says Clay. Yeah, I agree with that. The Avengers was the first time they had all interact. DC won't have that, but you need new heroes to get that feeling. I agree. New heroes and separated. So that's why for me, when the Authority, I'm fine with that. I don't need Batman or, you know, build up to that because I'm not trying to be those guys. But it was, you had Man of Steel and then BVS and they're all together. It was seeing the Trinity together for the first time. Great. But it was just, there was no build up. It's like, oh, they're together. Oh, okay, cool. You know, I'm not saying you need a solo film for all of them and stuff like that. I think in Justice League it showed that didn't work, or worked for something that you didn't need a solo film, but you do want to get that sense of an event, right? Because from 2008 to 2012, that's 4 years. Even 4 years. And at the same time where I guess you could argue 3 years with Man of Steel, but the difference is you were meeting all these other characters. And maybe I am pitching do the solo films first. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think you have to, but I think people that treat it as like, that's a fucking crime, you should just be like the MCU. I don't know, it worked. It worked and I liked it, so I'd be fine with it. So yeah, that's Superman Legacy casting details, all that good jazz. So let's take our first ad break and then we'll be right back with I don't know. We'll probably talk some Flash. We'll be right back. And we're back. So, oh boy. So, the Flash, right? Talking about DC, EU, and all this stuff. Oh my God. Yeah, I really don't know. Big shout out. Give the applause and golf clap. It was on a predictions episode and Trash Toy where Hancy, patron Hancy, Discord, she brought up it's never been Mo Orbs but said that'd be a 70% drop, and I said no way, I don't think so. And even with the bad first week, I even said no way, because it's lower. So probably won't have such a big drop because it's lower. Like Elemental, right? It only had like a 38% drop because it was so low. It's like having good word. But even then, when it's like, oh, it's having good word of mouth, it's still very low. So there's not much you can do. Hancy hasn't said a fucking word in the chat today. And then out of nowhere, Hancy told you. Well, yes, he did. And you know what? I have to say, I'm very happy. Everyone used their version of the hashtag. I started a few years ago. Katie used it today. It's great. Swiffer in the nation. Pickens, not a big fan. That Flash movie sucked. I didn't think it sucked, but apparently, I guess you could say some people did. We went over last week, right? I gave a whole bullet points of here's like your 5 or 6 reasons why it would have collapsed. So I don't need to go over that again. Just need to go over where you had the box office this weekend. Number 1 was Spider-Verse, which after 4 weeks was number 1. So congratulations to that. Number 2 is Elemental, like we talked about, good hold. And then number 3 was The Flash at like 12 point something, whatever it may be. And then let's see, and then No Hard Feelings was at 4, and I think there's like I think it's lower, but it's like $1 million difference, pretty much. It's like a 0.8 or something. I don't care how people want to slice it. That's completely, it's awful. It's terrible. This is one of the biggest disasters of all time. I don't know. Again, I've said before, I understand all these things of like COVID and streaming and options and inflation, all this stuff. I've heard all these theories, right? And I've heard, oh, it can't be the DC brand because people are, lots of other brands are struggling. And that's true. Transformers is, Pixar, look at Elemental. But the thing is, we've shown that some films can be successful and hit $1 billion. I'm not saying this had to hit $1 billion, but you can see that some films can still go out, make a profit, and do well. And even if you would have told me, like obviously I said no to the 70%, but even if you would have told me it was 70% versus this, I was like, okay, I'll take the 70%. Even if you again would have told me that, hey, it's going to really underperform, I would have never thought it'd be having worse second weekends than Black Adam. The fact that in its second weekend, it lost to 2 other films and nearly lost to a rated R comedy starring Jennifer Lawrence, which is not a bad thing because J-Law, big star, but still it's like, it's just a radar non-IP comedy, and the fact it struggled to beat that, whatever it is. And even then, people, I see it's all times where that's a debate, right? It's like, oh, well, it's going to probably blow up on streaming. They're going to love it over there. It's going to do big numbers, stuff like that. It doesn't matter. Sure, yes, you still make money off subscriptions and sales, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there are movies that people will go out. Look at Spider-Verse. I'm not saying that that's going to be about 600 million. I'm not saying it's the biggest hit of all time, but still, people decide to continually go back and see it. This is a movie that came up and people said no. And the weird thing is, it's just like, and I didn't believe that because I remember we were talking, I think on Vodka Stream about like the second weekend. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna like have like a great leg. I didn't think 70%, but I didn't think it's gonna like save it, because that B Cinema score, I know people don't understand how cinema score works. So that's like a horror movie score. There's like an A+A. It's not the same way as people. I don't understand how people don't get this nowadays. Like, I feel like if you're in film Twitter and the community, you should get it. People, oh, Bane's not that bad. B used to be good in my day. What's wrong? Like, it goes in a pretty much tiered system of A+, A minus, B+, B. So what is that? Like A+, A minus, B+. So it's like it's 5 digits below the highest score could get. B is, like I said, what lots of horror movies get because they're usually mixed with the audiences. All around, people domestically and international have just said no. And I think right now it's supposed to finish at, the rumor projection is 350 to 400 the most. But at the same time, who knows about projections, because it was projected to even be a bit higher and it's still awful, right? And I really don't get it. I'll never get it to the point of, I could understand it have been a success if it would, or a limited of like, because I think I said I was probably around like the 700 mark, somewhere in there, maybe 800. I would understand, still been like surprised, but like a 500, 600, like what Spider-Verse is doing, right? I still think they should be flipped. The fact that it's this bad, it's going to do, worse than Black Adam, worse than some other one, had the biggest DC drop ever, second weekend drop ever, just a percentage below Morbius. that is not good. These are all bad situations. That's why they want to get this news out here. They want to talk about Superman. There's just no way you can slice it. They looked at this movie, everybody, and said, no, I don't want to see this. Don't have no time for it. Or, and whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Because people bring up streaming, waiting for streaming. They bring up, well, you got Barbie and Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible. You got that. You got inflation. I will always say it doesn't matter. Yes, that's 100% the reason why this movie's not doing as well. And yes, DC, I do think there's something to do with that, with the DC brand, where people have seen enough DC films to, not care about that brand or see this character. And again, it's funny. There's a chart too that I'd have to pull it up. Where should is it in there? But it was like, hopefully I have it. It was the top 10 DCU, or it was like ranking the DCU openings, like box office domestic openings and stuff like that, right? Here it is. So, first of all, if you go to the top 10 for MCU, none of the DCU get in there. The biggest one's 166 for BVS, and then it's 174 for Iron Man 3. So it doesn't even get that. So Man of Steel doesn't fit with this theory, but as I brought up again, you have BVS at 166, and then Suicide Squad at 133. They still want to make a lot of money, but then after that, 103 for Wonder Woman, 93 for Aquaman, 93 for Justice League, 67 for Aquaman, Black Adam 67, The Flash 55, Shazam 53, and Birds of Prey 33. To me, it's one of these things where there is a correlation there. I know people go, oh, well, GA members wouldn't understand that. No, they will see a movie, and if they don't like it, they're not going to see the sequel. They can take movies base by base, where that's why the Batman and the Joker are doing well, because they go, hey, this is a new version of that. Great. If they see BVS, and then they see that same Wonder Woman, that same Batman that they did enjoy there, I will use my mom as an example. No, they're not gonna. And that's the point I made in the tweet. I remember Justice League, of people that would go see these big movies. They don't want to see it. Why? Because they didn't like the last one. They're not just gonna wipe their slate mind. And maybe that's a bit of it too, where this is still linked to some of that universe. Aquaman is the exception of the rule. The rest of them, you can look, diminishing returns. Since Aquaman, a movie domestically has not made $400 million in the DCU. And I don't know if that's gonna happen for Blue Beetle, definitely not, or Aquaman 2. It's crazy that this is the movie. There's a lot of movies I would have thought, and it's funny that Black Adam was like painted as this massive bomb, and it's like, here we are with this, and it's worse than that. Black Adam, they would take a Black Adam right now over what's happening with The Flash, and I will never understand it. And I don't even know then too, if Hansi, you're still in the chat, I'd never ask you, but like, I know you thought 70%, but I still thought you were maybe basing that off of at least it having like a good opening weekend. And maybe you weren't though, but the fact that it's just at every turn, at every single box, it's just, when you look at the success, okay, to disappointing, every single box has come and I feel like same thing. It's tough, right? Because I feel like the lots of people that I talk to enjoy the movie, but I've seen enough pushback now of people just saying meh. And if it's meh, they're not going to recommend it. Like I guarantee you, Hansi, and same thing with you, Pickens, right? I see in the chat, if you guys, Hansi, I think you gave it like a 2 on Letterboxd or something. Pickens, you said it sucked. If I see enough discourse around it, those people aren't going to recommend the movie. They're not going to go out there and say, oh, you got to see this. You can be like, just wait for streaming. And that's great. Again, and people try to use this as saying, oh, it's so different, the world's so different, stuff like that. And there you go. Hansi said, I thought the opening would be better, to be honest. And that's where I was, and that's where I thought your 70% would be wrong, because I thought, hey, it's going to, what did it make, like 55? It's going to be like 30. We're going to be fine. It made like under 20. For me, people can say all day long that it's going to come on streaming and do great. Ask every fucking person there whose job depends on this money. Ask Zazoff, ask Gunn for the future. Hey, take those streams and turn that in the box office. What would you rather have? And that's why for people saying about Blue Beetle and Aquaman, put it streaming, no matter what, they're not going to do that, because at least you'll make something. There is a funny case to be made that Batgirl would have maybe been more profitable in Flash, as far as the sense of just like the budget's lower. And that's what I was going to say too. I forgot to mention this for last week, and maybe I wasn't clear enough, but very nice. I appreciate the person. They left us a 5-star review on the podcast, but they had a question. And this is where I will explain, just in case I didn't explain, or anybody else that doesn't know. Let's see. So, or did they delete it? Because it's on these things there I didn't understand. Let's see. Okay. So Park Elites. I was listening to Travis Told You. So, he said Travis Told You. So just Travis Told You, Get out of here. Let's see. I was listening to Travis told you about the Flash box office. According to Travis, this movie was a flop. According to Box Office Mojo, it made $129 million on a 4-day opening weekend. I'm not sure why he's calling it a flop. So just to give an example is, one, it was lower than projections, which isn't good. But what you want to do is you want to make your money back. You want to be making a profit. Breaking even in Hollywood is not a good thing. Whew, we dodged a bullet because we could have lost some money. It's true. Like, again, if people would take losing money or breaking even, they're going to do that. But the idea of making, a movie is to make profit. And, that's everything in life, right? The same thing as example, right? If we were to do a podcast, right? And let's say it were to cost us, and it doesn't, but let's say it were to cost us $100 to produce. And then we went and made $100 on that podcast. Trust me, we're not making $100 on solo podcasts. I'm just using that example. Difference for us, and that's where the artist business thing comes up, right? Because I guarantee you the people that made The Flash, myself, if we just broke even, it's like, hey, we had a great time because I get to talk with my friends, we got our community, that's fine. But if you go from a business standpoint, you go, let's say the topic was, I hate to throw tail on the bus, but Xbox, because I see an Xbox remote. Let's say we did that and we go, hey, these aren't really profitable, but then there's something over here that is. We're going to stick with that, or maybe we won't do that as much. And that, hey, we talk about that too all the time, right? With us, comic versions, commentary track, they weren't downloaded enough that we could do the same amount of work on this podcast and or this we would get the same amount of maybe profit for this podcast and putting in half the time versus this. Because comic versions, that's weeks of us reading. Commentary track, that could be 2.5, 3 hours where we might just do an hour newscast. And, I would love if those did better, but sometimes just the headlines do better and stuff like that, right? So that's why. And this movie right now has a reported $220 budget. So many people have said that's not true. It's probably more like 300, but let's just say it is 220, right? The marketing budget is rumored to be 150. So you're going to be looking at what? So 370. So here's your, for Park Elites. If you, on paper, that sounds good, but it's all relatively budget. The same way as Smile, which I didn't love Smile last year, but Smile was made for, let me pull it up. And this is where it all comes down to Hollywood, what it's about as far as profiting and what does well and stuff like that, right? Smile, go check. So budget, $17 million, box office, $217 million. They made a $200 million profits. So yes, on paper, you could look at The Flash when it's done. Let's say it makes 350 and you compare it to Smile and you go, oh, made like 330 million more than Smile, a much bigger movie. No, because if the budget is 370 and it makes 350, you've lost $20 million. And even if you you've broken even. And they've probably gonna, and eventually it'll make money because you do a streaming and toys and stuff, and who knows. But eventually over years it maybe makes a profit back. But you want to be in the stratosphere of, that's why they always say you want to double your budget and then some, because once you double the budget, then it's, and not the case for all movies, right? But once you double them, it's like, okay, now we're in that profit zone. Let's see what else we can get. If you just break even, meh. For Hollywood, waste of time. For the artists, of course, no artist is gonna, Muschietti's not gonna come out and be like, hey, that is it didn't make a profit, so I hate that movie. I don't appreciate the movie anymore. No, unless people are making movies that way, then I don't want to see those movies. So it's a catch-22 and stuff like that. T.A. Chancey says, I think Blue Beetle might even beat The Flash second week it drop. It could. I still think Blue Beetle's gonna be like a, or do you mean beat it by being lower than, or just beat it by being higher than? I don't think it'll be higher than 72. Because I think Blue Beetle will be what I thought was going to happen with The Flash. I think it'll be like a 30-40 and then maybe drop to like a 15-20. So it might be like a 60 somewhere in there and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. DCU is clearly not a trusted brand, has literally had 6 profitable movies from theatrical runs. Yeah, not great. And that's where it shows. And I don't care what people think. And that's where it all comes down to our lifestyle, right? Where some people go, no, I don't have that. But for me, I've bumped into so many people over the years that BVS and Squad ousted them. And they're not dumb enough to not know that these are not connected. They're not going to know everything. They're not going to know Justice League. They might not know Marvel and DC. But again, if they see, same thing as Harley Quinn, right? If they see her and they go, I don't really like that last movie, I can wait till I get home, then you're done. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Hansi says it won't be a bad up drop, maybe 50, 60%. Yeah, I agree. I could see like the 60. Blue Beetle, I hope it does well. actors and directors keep talking about how the trilogy plan. I feel like if you just saw it happen in The Flash, now who knows when those interviews were done, but if you just saw The Flash, I would not be saying anything about a trilogy, but that's what's going to happen. 740 to break even on that instance, lost more money than 20 million, cost cinemas rarely take 50%. And that's the other thing. Thank you, All in the Game. For Park Elites, they don't keep all that money. As All in the Game saying, they take roughly 50. Is that true? Maybe that's in America. I feel like that's not the case here in Canada. I thought they got less than. I don't think they get 50 All in the Game. Maybe you'd have to like put a lick in the chat. I feel like because at least in Canada, it's like most of the time they make their money off of like concessions. That's where they get all their money. But either way, it doesn't matter. 50%, 20%, 5%. They don't get all that money. Lots of that go, and some of that goes to paying actors on the back end. Some of it goes to the theater. There's lots of things. So it's not just a full on, hey, we've made the money. So that's why not looking good. Spider-Verse, very good for that. It's holding strong. We're going to talk about the controversy there in a second. No Hard Feelings said better than projected. I think it was projected as like a 10, 12, did 15. I know I saw all these tweets this weekend about like, if you want to support and see more of these movies, you got to go see them. I do, but at the same time, as we talked about, that's one of those movies where like I don't need to pick it. I'm very excited to see that movie at home. I don't need to see it in the theater. I don't need to find a babysitter. I don't need to go spend $50 on that movie. When me and Emily are nice and retired, the kids don't like us and they think we're losers, don't want to spend time with us. Sure, but right now, that's where it's tough. Of like, those movies are tough to sell. I think you do need an ensemble cast, and even then, I don't think that's like a good. Like, I don't think like you need like a Hangover type, right? And even then, I'm not saying, oh, this is going to be a massive movie. No, those are just very hard to sell now. So, Only Game says it averages out to 50% worldwide because of Hollywood gets a max of 25% from China. Yeah. I guess you could go that route. I don't know if it'd be a full clean 50 or something like that, but yeah, it adds up absolutely. So. Who knows what happens next week? Because what happens? Indy's out this week. That's another interesting one too. We were talking about in our Discord, right? Right now the projections I think are, oh god, what were they? I think it was 50 to 60, which projections have been all over, right? So that could be like a 40 to 50. I talked about it many times in the retro. Go check out every one of our retrospectives is out now, all the way from the Raiders, all the way to Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Lots of fun, had some good times. I'm excited to review that this week. Hasn't really hit me. I don't think I've even bought my ticket yet. Hasn't hit me that it's out, but I've said it before. I just don't know if this generation cares about Indiana Jones, just meaning the newer ones, because I don't. No, I'm not I'm not nightclubbing anymore. I don't know this. I just have to go off as far as, hey, projects have been rising recently, but people are saying that doesn't really match with pre-sales. Okay, projections. Yeah, and I feel like that's the thing we've seen with this summer is projections is like one number is one thing, and who knows? It's been all over the map, right? So I just feel like from what I would, and not saying I'm going up to people being like, do you know who Indiana Jones is? But I feel like my sister's friend group, who my sister's about 7 years younger, the next generation, like, I don't know, I've lost track of who next generation is. Even like people like S. Bubs, you're younger, and like, you're watching them. You've seen them before, I guess, and you'd be a good barometer too. Of like, I just don't feel like I hear young people talk about that as a touchstone anymore. I don't feel like, and again, I'm not. It's all just my little situation, right? I'm the same guy that said I didn't think Spider-Verse was gonna have this massive jump, and it happened. I'm just saying of like, I don't know if I felt the fever for even Spider-Verse. I could make a better case for winning an Oscar, trending on Netflix all the time. It's on there. I don't think I can make that case for Indiana Jones. I never felt like, other than it's Harrison Ford, I have that. I know Kirkland has that. I think Taylor has that. I think Dylan's like excited, but like he doesn't have like I have to see the next Indiana Jones, but he's saying because we did the retro. But I think for a lot of people, it's not a have to. I think it's one of these things that, so it says, I don't think I've talked to anyone outside my family about Indiana Jones, LOL. Yeah, and I think I'm about the same way, not counting people that are not in the GA moviegoers, right? I just think the time is maybe past for it. And I'm not saying Reboot would work. No, sometimes franchises are just, they're good where they are. They were a product of the time. As we learned, speaking of Harrison Ford, I suppose I saw you in the Discord watch them, Blade Runner. The first Blade Runner bombed, and years later they thought, well, probably found its audience, was a huge cult following, maybe now's the time. And it showed that, yeah, it wasn't. Now we're still getting a TV show, which I'm excited about. I don't know why. I'm happy Amazon's throwing around money. I don't know why Amazon would look at the box office of the last two and be like, yeah, this was a success. Makes no sense to me, but I'm very happy it's happening. But that's one where I go, movie wise, that's done. It's over. So we will see. Let's take our last ad break. Yeah, second last ad break, something like that. Talking about Spider-Verse. We'll talk about that. And we're back. Oh, got no water. Oh, wait, let me walk off camera. Let's see what I got here. Do I go? Oh, I do. I got a little bit left. Oh, Izzy wasn't happy with that. My dog was giving me the stink eye for leaving away and stuff like that. But Spider-Verse. Excuse me. Word is going around that's getting delayed. I know there's some fake statement out there. But yeah, so great 4th weekend. But then it was a little mixed as far as... So we had heard rumblings about this before where Haley Steinfeld said, hey, I've not recorded any lines. And the movie's out in March. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign. And then there was things people being like, yeah, it's pretty, like, it's not as far along as you think. And then this report came out. And you can go read the whole article. I think it was Vulture that put it out. Not a good look all around. It's the classic case, and this is what sucks of it being me saying it's the classic case. It should not be the classic case. These people need to unionize. I know it's harder. I know to get a union started, wrestling's always talked about before. It's very hard, and a lot of people break under the pressure. So that's the thing where it's like, it's not as easy as us just saying, right? It's just, I think, more of a hope that I'm putting out there. I hope this happens, but the report came out, much like we heard about with Marvel, that lots of these animators are overworked. They're working, which is a fucking unresponsible number. 7 days and 11 hours. So you're putting this overtime and working 7 days straight. And I know people are going to be, of course, if there's somebody, because we've heard about that before too, right? With video games, this happens with them. But then we've heard some people like anonymously go, hey, I fucking love that. I love grind. Like, it's great. That's great. But at the same time, there's people that don't. And the tough thing is with the gaming industry in Hollywood, you're good. And I think we've all gone that jobs. I've gotten that jobs before and I don't take it anymore, but they're like, oh, you could stay a little longer, right? And you get guilted into it. And it's this thing too, like, if you don't say yes, you're fucked. And that's where I do like now being in a union, because that doesn't happen to me. But it's just that thing of like, people will hold it against you. So I guarantee there's tons of these employees that did not want to work 7 days, did not want to work 11 hours, wanted to go home. I don't care if they didn't have a family, whatever, just wanted to go home and fucking rest, wanted to go home and have a life, just chill out. If you want to just go home and just veg out and watch Grey's Anatomy all day, that's your prerogative. To you to get kind of strong-armed into having to work 11 hours a day, that's awful. I'm sure they're getting paid. I'm sure there's even overtime, but it doesn't matter. Money's not always worth that. It's what I learned later on. Like, I would do that sometimes. Like, it's not worth that. It's just best to say, nah, fuck it. But it's tougher with these people because there is no union and it is a job to job thing. So you can't do that. So it's just like kind of a, oh, you think you could? Like, I'm not saying that's happened, but it just kind of sounds like, oh, you think you could? Then there's tough stuff with Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Chris Miller was, they said, rumored to not even really be around. So you got to love he's getting all this credit and then not really around. And then Phil Lord, it's a difficult thing, right? Because he is the producer, but it sounds like from the first one to this one, he's very much the Feige of this. He's running this. So when you got reports of, hey, they would write something and he'd come to them and revise and say, you got to do it this way. At the end of the day, that's your boss. I hate to say that, it might suck, and you might think your idea is better, but it doesn't really matter. So that being used as a takedown, I didn't really go, and it all depends on the way, right? It depends on, hey, I'm going to do this, like, you have to do it this way. I just think it would be better, fine. If he's motherfuckering them, saying you idiots, then of course, but I don't think he's doing that. I think it's just a combination of a lot of employees mad about a lot of things, so they've probably just thrown everything there. But him doing a revision, yeah, sure, that's like a whole case of, creative freedom and stuff, but if he's footing the bill, if he's the main runner, if he's the one getting you the gig, you kind of have to do that, right? It's the same way at my job where I am as far as my interior health one goes. I'm not going to talk about specifics, but if there's things that a boss does that I don't agree with, even if I might feel like it's going to make my job harder, I go, okay, well, you're the boss. For the most part, there's some stuff I do, would put a foot down and say, hey, no, I can't do it this way. But for the most part, you got to go with the flow. The idea of the rendering stuff over 5 times, again, that's with 11 hours. That's a tough one. This idea of Amy Pascal, again, it's tough because it's that show business, show friends of, right? It doesn't matter. Like, you got to do the job till it's done. Now, that is true, but like, if you keep making the job consistently hard, and the case was they were trying to make it of like, you could argue they're perfectionists, and that's why 5 times over. And again, that's fine. But then you got to work in a certain way where, you're not putting in those hours. You got to work away where, the story was spreading around a lot this week of like David Lynch and his working conditions, where he'd always make sure that there was a hard out. And when the time was done, time was done. The movie's done when it's done. We're not going to rush. We don't need to stay here for hours and hours and kill ourselves. Some studios aren't like that. And then with Phil Lord, I can't remember. It was just like certain way as far as like, I should have brought it up, but it wasn't a good look for him as far as some attitudinal things, as far as like it was the, hey, you should do it this way, but it is the maybe overarching boss or overarching boss. Again, it's all anonymous. You don't know what's going on. So all this stuff, but again, if he's there as part of the overworking, that sucks too. Cause I don't know if he's there overworking with all of them. It's probably like, you have to do this, this, and this, cause I said, but who knows, right? But that's been the biggest thing, is like they're still like in pre-production. This report said it's not even going to be ready to go. So expect this to be more like 2026. And of course it does suck. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear this movie that lots of people think is the greatest movie of the year, better than the first one. It does put a little rain on the parade when you go, man, people got work to like get this done. So that sucks. I want the delay so people can work better, and not in the sense of them working harder, in the sense of them getting better conditions. So hopefully that rumor happens, and then Amy Pascal, a bit of a nightmare, shocker. So anyways, yeah, Pascal's a character. I know some people say like, oh, we need another email leaks. Yeah, and I think she's lucky she survived all that, as far as still producing a lot of stuff and film those email leaks. There's some of them that were really bad, but and not even the sense of they're racial or sexual. It's just in the fact of you're a real shit person, and everyone can be an asshole. Everyone can be a shit person, but it was just like the consistency of like, and I'm sure those are the ones that got released the most, but it's just like the fact that happens, it kind of comes up again, that they're kind of, cunty, like, for a lack of a better expression. Not great. I know Kay's not listening, but I know if she would have heard me say it, didn't like it, but just a word. Words are all made up. They can't define us. Whatever. If they're being that way, you're being that way. So that's likely getting delayed. That sucks. And then you got Kraven, was just gonna fucking flop to high heaven. So yeah, that trailer came out. We didn't have a newscast last week. I'll probably ask the guys about it at some point, but I don't know. It's a thing where if you like these Sony movies, Marvel movies, then you enjoy them. As I've said, I was like, whatever they need to do now to get us to Spider-Verse movies, do. I don't want the employees' health being in there, so take that back. But as far as these movies that they're sacrificed, sure. To me, it feels even more dated than Venom and Morbius. It just looks very much like a 2000s action movie that happens to be a comic book character. I know people go, there's no accent. It is weird, but I don't think that's the biggest thing. If there's no accent, it's a great movie, I can look past it. But I think this movie, if you look, to me, it's way more. When I say Blue Beetle sometimes has a generic feel, I think at times it does. Kraven's way, way, way more generic, and it's radar. I think this thing's going to eat it. I don't think it's going to do well. I think people are going to turn their back, and I think you're going to see a lot of reassessing, because there is that situation right now where they're saying that Bad Bunny's dropped out of El Muerto, and that's where you go, okay, that movie's dead. And we talked about this before, where there's like some rumors of things being canceled or moves around and stuff. I would want them to get their shit together. And I think if Kraven bombs, if you got Kraven and Madam Web, I gotta wait till I see a trailer. But if Kraven bombs, I feel like even then they're gonna have to sit back and look, hey, like, what do we do here? Like, what are we doing here and stuff like that? We don't know the contract situation between MCU and them, so maybe they can't make a Spider-Man thing, but make Spider-Gwen, make 2099, like, lay on those, like, get your Spider-Woman one going, like, do more of this live action stuff. If it can't be Peter Parker, then fine. If it can't be Miles, fine, but there's tons of stuff to do. But yeah, the trailer, I just feel like it was just, okay, cool, you got some gore in there, great. I'm not at the stage, I'm not a I'm not 10, that's bad. I'm not a 7-year-old kid, because I saw a lot of horror movies by then, who goes like, fuck yeah, he bit his nose, fuck yeah. It's like, I can see that shit anywhere. It looks very generic. What? He's left for dead. He comes back, hunts his dad's crew, kills his dad, set it for a sequel, a bad post-credit scene that has something to do with Spider-Man. Done. There is the movie. We'll review it. I hope I can make sure Emily's with me, because I needed someone for it's a so bad, so good sort of time. We will be here, of course, but yeah, I don't think it was a good showing. And as far as I don't think it did anything that makes the general audience, because I heard that from CinemaCon of like, hey, this trailer, it's more than you think. It wasn't. You got bad Animorph stuff going on. You got Rhino going on. Like, I for me, there wasn't anything. It was the same old, same old. Didn't look too interesting. So we'll see. Let's see. You can see that all in the hit 2022 Hulu film Prey. Absolutely yes, Bubs. And my last point on that before we transition into some wrestling stuff, so people that don't watch wrestling, you can go. Pickens maybe they're still there, but my last point on that is just that's where we are with the Flash not doing well, with Ant-Man not doing well, with Shazam, probably Kraven, Marvels I think will underperform. It's not so much now. I think it is superhero fatigue, but it's almost it's just like superhero correctness in the sense of I said from 2016 to 2019, it was just you were at a buffet, right? For the comic book movies, most of them did very well, made lots of money. Now I feel like after COVID, people go, I'm sick of the buffet. I remember when me and my dad were in Vegas, we went to the buffet, and eventually we were like, fuck. And I think he likes buffets a lot too, but I love buffets, especially, I guess I wasn't heavier back then, but I fucking love a restaurant and can eat everything. I don't care if it's not the greatest food. Love it. I'll eat it all. Give it to me. But eventually, after a week, we're like, I don't want to do a buffet anymore. And I feel like that's the way it is where I don't need to do a superhero film more. If something piques the interest, I'm going to go there, which is why I thought Flash would, but it didn't. I don't think Kraven does. And I think that's where even stuff where people would watch something just because it was a superhero project. Not anymore. And that's where I think Kraven, like you said, S-Bubs, there's other films of Prey that you can watch at home. That's where the streaming thing does come in. You need to look unique. You need to have something unique. I thought The Flash had something unique, whether it's Keaton, some other stuff, but it was not unique enough. And that's the same thing. This is not unique enough. People will happily watch this one at home because it's a movie you've seen 10,000 times that looks fine, you know? So I like director G.C. Trander, Margin called Most Violent Year All's Lost. Yeah, I didn't like, and I know people say this all in the game, it's mediocre fatigue. I don't know if I can agree with that because it's just like, it is, but you can't, like, I don't think The Flash is so bad. I guess I made my points about the discourse, but we've also seen movies that are great bomb, right? Like, we'll see a movie this year that'll be great, that'll be awful. Look at Blade Runner 2049. Now, 2049? Just 2049. That's not this year, but I'm just saying, like, I agree to a sense, but it's, if you mean mediocre fatigue as far as just like, you know, the plot, advertising, marketing, yeah, I can get behind that. If it just looks generic, then fine. But people have said that now after, it's like once the movie comes out, it's like, well, one, we've seen movies that are awful do really, really well. Like, and we've seen movies that are really, really good do poorly, right? So I think there's like a middle. And JC Trent, yeah, I do like. I just don't think it's one of these where it's a home run because it's Sony. Who knows how much he gets in there? It's like Morbius will just cut it up to shit and everything, you know? But we'll see. So anybody that tuned in for the movie point of views and stuff like that, you can get out of here now. Got some wrestling. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'll be back next day with Secret Invasion with the boys, and then Indiana Jones, and that's gonna be lots of fun over there. So yeah, AEW Forbidden Door. I should pull up the card. I just have to go over as far as with let's see, Forbidden AEW. I feel like people, they keep forgetting who the best wrestler in the world. I feel like every 4 to 5 months, I'll hear conversations about, oh, this is the best wrestler, this is the best wrestler, da, 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 da. But then, after a while, the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT, he comes out and he reminds everybody. And he says, you know what? It's already decided who the best wrestler of the world is. And it's me. And that's Kenny fucking Omega. Because, yes, unlike everybody, that I think it is one of the greatest matches of all time that him and Will Ospreay had this weekend. Fucking phenomenal. I loved that first one. I don't know why I didn't have it as high as other, like I had it as like a match of the year, like contender for sure, but I don't think it was up there. It wasn't that I was missing anything. It was just like, there's just a different echelon, right? Where there's like the Mount Rushmore, and the Mount Rushmore can have more than 4 faces of matches and stuff like that. But still, it's one of these things where I didn't have it high there. This one I do. And that one could still, if someone said that, great. I had one issue at one point. They threw it down Callis, and then he came back. They could have worded that differently, so that's why it kind of takes it down from me making it like in the top 3, I think, for me personally. But he, as far as Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay too, gets a bunch of credit too. But Kenny is just a fucking machine, and he couldn't do it without Ospreay. I'm not trying to discount. I'm just trying to say that I feel like people almost sit on Kenny Omega, and then he comes out and reminds them. Then he'll like sit back for 4 to 5 months, not do anything, then come out, put out another banger, and people go, "Yeah, he really is great." Because there's always a through line between like this, Okada, the Bucks tag match, stuff like that. It's always like every once in a while, Kenny with somebody, Kenny with somebody. Lots of the others are having great matches. Okada's having great matches in New Japan, stuff like that. But yeah, that is definitely, I have to make a top 10 one day. I know maybe David's probably listening to this one day. I hope to some point have that wrestling podcast and do it, because I have so many topics, so many things I want to do. Maybe one day, but life is just tough and busy. It's already the point where I go, man, sometimes, as Travis told you, I've told you this before, it's tough to work it in, right? But yeah, it was an incredible match. The story, when you have those things, because you know there's gonna be a kick out, when you have 3 to 4 times where you're surprised a kick out or a story turn happens, they got you. Especially with myself, who's been watching this thing for his whole life. I've been watching it since I was 6 months, a 1-year-old, or whatever you want to say. My grandma always said I was 6 months, but I've watched it for a long time. It's hard to be surprised, and they killed it. They did such a good job. Storytelling, the moves. Some of the moves were just brutal that they did. It was fantastic. I can't think of every adjective you were to describe and it being great for a match. That's this. This was an incredible story told. I love the idea of the first match was Kenny had most of the control, and then this one Ospreay had most of the control. So he thought, oh, they're just going to do the flip where this match Ospreay gets the control, beats Kenny, and then the third one's going to be even. No, it was Ospreay had the control, and then Kenny turned around, got the control, and then it was a back and forth. Ospreay had that control at the end, but really the control was just like beating him down and down and down and down until he couldn't take it anymore. And it was just chef's kiss, French kiss, blowjob, whatever you want to call it, whatever type of oral fixation you want to do to it. It was yeah, it's a work of art. As far as I run out of stuff to say. I really do, of how good it is. I was just flabbergasted. It's one of those where you sit back and you go, wow, that's what pro wrestling can do. Wow, that's what they pulled off. It's so impressive. And there's so much stuff that like botch wise should have gone wrong, and it didn't. That move where Ospreay comes off the turnbuckle or the ropes and Kenny kneed him in the back of the head, which is like a knee that has fucking ended careers. The fucking Tiger Driver and stuff like that. It's just crazy stuff. They really put it all out there. I really hope we get that third rematch in Wembley. I don't know if we're gonna, but that should be in a crowd with 60,000 people. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I really hope it does. So I guess I should start with the overall event. That I thought the overall event was great. I think I said this on Twitter, it's an event that it feels like ECW 2005, where it's this one time and then becoming a 2-time, and then they brought it back and stuff like that. But it has a sense of speciality to it, and it's one of the things that WWE can never provide. They can bring in NXT, they can have a wrestler like Jushin Thunder coming from New Japan to come in for a match, and that's it. To have this whole event where it feels like a AEW versus New Japan, all these different stars, pairings, dream matches you've never seen before, rematches of dream matches, it no matter what feels special. And last year was great, but it was one of those things where it was missing a lot of stars, missing Bryan, missing Kenny, missing Punk, and even New Japan was missing Naito. It was missing a lot of people. This one was bigger, but two, it just really cemented itself as this is easily AEW's second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And same thing with New Japan. They got Wrestle Kingdom. I guess I'd say AEW has All Out. That's their, WrestleMania. But this has cemented itself as the second place. And it's going to be always the most anticipated. As long as they can keep doing it, top to bottom, this was a great show. There's a few maybe, not lulls, but a few just like not, everything's good. And that's the problem, because like almost everything else, like the lowest tier stuff was good. Everything else was like good to fucking great or epic and stuff like that, right? But to go down some of this matches quickly, MJF versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. This was one where it's like, it was just good. They did what they could. Obviously Tanahashi, he doesn't have too much mobility. He's been doing this for a long time. It's just fun to have like, the legend be there and do his thing. And I thought it was like a serviceable match. Started the show off good. Good little defense for MJF, sure. Next was CM Punk versus Satoshi Kojima, Lariat. So CM Punk, I haven't talked about this. I've been meaning to, and I've just been delayed and stuff like that. His return, right? I'm not going to go over it because it's like weeks old and stuff like that. I think the guy just knows He's great at the promo. And how happy 12-year anniversary to Pipe Bomb, the thing that saved me from being a wrestling fan because I was ready to quit, and he dropped that promo, and then I was flabbergasted, and kept me going for a few years, and then got me to New Japan. There's a whole line there to where I am now as far as a wrestling fan. Because yeah, if CM Punk doesn't cut that promo, who knows if I'd still be watching wrestling. I would have. It would have been classic stuff, or I would have, I guess, got back in New Japan like I did when I stopped watching, I think around 2016 WWE. But it's been interesting, but the guy knows what he's doing. He's pushing the buttons. He has something which, sure, he's getting booed a lot, but he has that Bret Hart 97, John Cena mid-2000s reaction where he's going to get booed a lot, he's going to get cheered a lot, more so booed this weekend because of his actions, but it's just noise that comes at the people, right? So I think it's very smart what he's doing. I think as long as he keeps it to just the audience and not the backstage stuff, we're golden. Obviously, he didn't do any press conference this week or the media scrum, so they're gonna watch that. I of course really hope we can get to Kenny and the Elite at some point. But if that doesn't happen, there's so much stuff like him working with Jay Wright right now. That's fantastic. Him probably gonna wrestle Samoa Joe in a few weeks. My God, we're very lucky. So I think there's lots of avenues. My hope is because he's in the tournament that he goes into the finals and loses. I think that would be very good way to put someone over, unless he cheats and wins. I think that'd be good. That'd be another version. But I don't just want, clean win for CM Punk. He's still the best in the world. No, I don't need that, but Tony could easily do it. So we'll see. Him and Kenny will be at separate stages, background and stuff like that at the arena. That's a little strange. Not strange. It's strange as I get why they did. It's just strange that's a thing. Like they have to think about, okay, well, they're going to be at that side and he's going to be at this side. But hopefully this trial period goes good and everything's just kind of fine. Everything works out fine. Even if they never wrestle, things work out fine. Because sure, it was great to have drama and talk about it. But at the end of the day, I want the company to do good. I want things to stick around. I don't want this to be WCW where in 5 years we're talking about how it went out of business. And man, I used to be such an AEW fan. I don't want that, so I want this company to do well. Orange Cassidy defeated Zack Sabre Jr., Shibata, and Daniel Garcia. This, to me, was my, I think, second match tonight. I fucking loved this Fatal 4-Way. I thought it was a really good one. It was a great combination of great wrestling, but entertainment, the sports entertainment. Whether it was the taunting, whether it was the show-offs, but some of these moves and sequences they're doing were really, really well done. I know some stuff's planned out, but it felt like everything was planned out, and they're not a lot of times. They got called in the middle of the ring, and man, they did such a great job. It's great to see Shibata just wrestling. Obviously, those injuries back in the day. Zack Sabre Jr., because I've been so behind, I haven't watched much New Japan. I was keeping up for a while after the Elite left, and I haven't missed watching him wrestle like on a weekly basis. So great to see him. And Orange keeps having this great run, but this to me was my second favorite match. Really enjoyed this one. These guys just put on a clinic and it was a good time. It's one of those classic matches where you just put on just to watch it, like kind of not in the background, but just like I want to watch a very fun match. This would be one of those. So after this was Sonata versus Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. This was a good one. Kind of underwhelming. I think they had semi-good chemistry, but it could have been a little longer. Felt like this was just to set up the Jungle Boy turn, and I'm looking very forward to see how he can do as a heel, because I think it's right to turn him. The crowd's turned on him a little bit. He's lost some steam. He's not that babyface I thought he was going to be a few months ago and stuff like that. But so it's the right move to turn him. I just don't know if he can bring it. And that's what we're going to find out, right? This is the put up or shut up time. So we'll see. That was a good match. The Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club. I think this was like a fun multi-man match. I know Pickens, I think he said it was his favorite after Osprey and whatnot. It was Sam. You said that. I enjoyed this one. I think it's just that it's tough for me when like the match itself is good, but when you're missing some of the members of the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club, it feels like a little lesser than. But yeah, Sam, you said the Toronto Crowd Forbidden Door was really something else. That unbelievable energy, that Punk reaction is going to be something or going to become a thing now everywhere except Chicago. Yeah, I agree, and that's the fun thing. Osprey match tonight, followed by a 10-man tag, and yeah, that's great that you liked it. I still liked it too. It still was a great time. That's, like I said, the tough thing when you have so many great matches. Like this could have maybe been match of the night somewhere else, but because it was on this card, for me it's not. But yeah, there was lots of great character moments too, lots of great building. I said before, the Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club was going to be a feud that we were very lucky to get. and we are very lucky to get it right now. It sucks that Brian seems to be hurt and his arm's broken. And at first he said 6 to 8 weeks, and they got scans, and it's much worse now. So I don't think he's going to make All In, which really sucks. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It sucks, and yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Tony Storm versus Willow, which I actually saw a lot of people be like, oh, that's fine. I actually thought they had good chemistry, and I want to see this again longer. I think Tony's doing... The Outcasts still suck, but I think Tony's doing much better in this role as a natural, like, as this kind of pouty heel and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was a good match. I said, the Outcast's not doing it for me. Hopefully in Wembley, Jim Hayter will be ready and we can get that kind of the third one. And that'll be very fun in Wembley. But yeah, this was a solid match right there. Talk about Will and Kenny. That was great. The 6-man tag, that's probably the weakest match here, other that or MJF and Tanahashi. It was just there to, like, as a good break. And you need those sometimes. It was a good break. It was a fun match. Fun to see Jericho and Sting, which the crowds just don't react as all to them. So I was surprised because that's always pairing. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see this. And it seems like Bill didn't care. And same thing with Punk. I was surprised no Elite chants or Omega chants or Bucks chants. I was very surprised by that. Maybe it'll happen in the future, but Canadians, you let me down. And then finally, Bryan Danielson versus Okada. This was a good, solid match, but of two things. One, the bad placement as far as going after Will and Kenny. That was just so tough for them. And I guess one thing I should say too, that for me, Will Ospreay, I know back to that match, I definitely didn't give him enough credit. I remember when I used to watch him and go, man, he's very talented, and did always feel like he was lacking a bit of the character stuff, lacking just something there. He doesn't lack that anymore. He has a presence. So that's where maybe before it's like, well, you have Okada and Danielson, these big personalities. He has that. The flag stuff, the character stuff, like mouthing off with the kids, what he did with Kenny and stuff like that, licking the blood. He's got those goods now. He feels like he is elevated, no pun intended for a song, but sure. Feels like he's elevated his game. So they couldn't follow that. It felt like they were having a different type of match, that it was good, but you could tell already when Bryan won, it was weird. Where one of the announcers was like, this was supposed to solve the best in the world argument, but I don't really know if it did. It's like, what? Like, Bryan Danielson beat Okada clean, tapped him out. Okada hasn't tapped out since 2015. Pretty clear who the winner was. It'd be different if Okada won and Bryan's arm was broken. You say, no, it's not, my arm broke. You won on kind of like a technicality because I was in so much pain. The fact that his arm was broken and he still beat Okada was very bad timing. And it's just like, it felt like they were holding back because they were definitely setting up for more down the line, whether it be Wrestle Kingdom or something else. So it was still a good match. It just didn't match the expectations. And I'm not saying they needed to go out there to have the same Kenny, Ospreay, blood, and kick out of finishers. Not that. You can have great matches where some people just hit one finisher. There was just something missing. But now, to me, I rate this one on a curve because the broken arm. And I remember the same thing I felt about, it was, I think, Money in the Bank some year, AJ Styles versus John Cena. And there was all this hype. And I remember walking out and being like, oh, yeah, it was good. Like it was good. You can even say really good. But it didn't match the expectations. We got to SummerSlam. It matched those expectations. I feel like the second one will match it more for varying different reasons. Yeah, it just, like I said, I wasn't needing the whole kick-out fest, but it just was lacking something, and it didn't feel like the epic match it should have. It felt like when it was ending, great to have the final countdown. It was great to hear that back, big flashback to like my teen years, but with like him coming out to that. But yeah, it was just, it didn't have that main event chutzpah, but again, I can't count it that way because maybe it would have with the broken arm because he was doing stuff. I think the general match layout would have been the same, but there could have been less awkward stuff. I love that Brian and the Mia Scrum point out that the only reason he did the yes chant, because he said he wouldn't do that in AEW. The only reason he did that is because like his arm was broken. He didn't know else how to get the people excited. So he did that. So very, very smart. Good on him. But great show. Got AEW coming up this Wednesday. We'll see what happens there. Collision, I've watched them both weeks. I've liked them. I feel like they do feel a bit different. They're making them big time. The ratings dropped. It was started like at 800,000. That dropped to 500,000. Not terrible on a Saturday, but now it's like, hey, what's the next drop? And what's the next drop, right? If it can keep it like a 500, 600, I think for a Saturday at, whatever, because that's going to be tough. There's times where I know I won't be watching. It'll be a Sunday morning replay. If it can keep in there, I think that's good. It's not the worst drop, but it's still a big drop. The worry is, does it keep dropping? And then what happens? Obviously, it hits a certain number and Warner Bros. Happy. That's good. But yeah, like the show. love Forbidden Door. It is fantastic. Can't wait for next year. It definitely was better than last year, in my opinion. Forbidden Door 1 was great. So, yeah, AEW's killing it. Again, the game this week, I can't wait. There's so much stuff. I'll talk about that because I think I'll do a review on that. So much stuff there. But yeah, thank you to everyone that tuned in. I know most people probably turned for the Superman talk, but appreciate you. I'll be back again coming up soon. Trust to you. There might not be one next week. I think I have to look at next week because I'm pretty sure I can give you. Is that the week that I'm thinking of? Yeah, a little scoop that I'll probably be filming for Brent on Marvel Alliance. It's just getting busier, and I might be camping as well too, so that's where that one might not happen with Canada and stuff like that. So you'll still hear from me on a bunch. Thank you very much for tuning in, and next time you hear from me, it'll not be boring.